Hi, I'm Dylan Brannigan, and welcome to my presentation. Today I'll be discussing the Hays Code and why I think it's a key moment in cinema history. To get started, the Hays Code came into being roughly around 1924. This was after a series of complaints from conservatives about the types of films that were being presented at theaters with racy and vulgar language. They really did not like that on the screen. With the government then getting involved in sending out hundreds of new bills, film producers could not keep up. So they hired William Hayes to kind of make an overall production code. In 1924, he released a list of recommendations that most film producers were kind of ignoring. But after another 6 years of this constant kind of ignoring of the recommendations, he finally made in 1930 the Hays Code. This code kind of proceeded to say exactly what could and could not be put on the screen. William Hayes himself was a high-ranking member of the church, a legionary, and the former head of the National Republican Committee. So he had quite a lot of opinions on what could and could not be shown on screen. In total, there were 36 restrictions, each with their own subcategories and kind of own specific rules pertaining to certain areas. The code was incredibly strict on what could and could not be shown on screen. It was during this time that films actually started to get racier between 1932 and 1933. That is when films really started to try and bring in more fun things. This was until 1934. Now, in the 1930s, there was a lot of gay humor in terms of pansy humor. There was a very effeminate men and very butch women. This came about sort of during the time of the First World War. Um, but a lot of conservatives found a lot of problems with that. They just really did not want queer people on the screen, however possible. Uh, the Paramount Production Company, MGM, both lasted until 1933 in keeping the raciness and the queer humor in. That was until, for MGM, their head of production company had a heart attack. For Paramount, it was they finally caved. But the Warner Brothers really did not abide by any of the Hays Code rules, including the rules of the Catholic Legion. The Catholic Legion were a kind of branch of the Catholic Church that really decided to come into play in 1934. They were there as kind of a backup to the Hays Code as they noted that it wasn't quite working. So they created a ranking system and an editorial office. You had to submit your film to them and it would be given a rank. Even in the A ranking, there are still four subsection categories. Miracle on 34th Street scraped by with a B. They were incredibly strict, and if your film got a condemned rating, it was banned from cinemas. Your films were not allowed to show. And quite a number of film producers really said that this was quite a scary time for them. Others thought it was great because they could get more creative. Due in part to the latter two rules that we saw on the restrictions, the No Sexual Perversion Act really kept out gay humor and gay people off screen altogether. Between 1940 and 1960, people realized that they could show gay people, but they had to make it that they had an unhappy end. This kind of trope continues, and it's why we have the bury your gays trope. These kind of stereotypes and kind of things that were set up during this time still live on. And unfortunately, we really can't get away from it. But in 1940, the cracks were already beginning to show. But in 1961 and 62, with the introduction of television, it became incredibly harder for them to just kind of policy work. And a lot of film companies realized that they were losing out and trying to fight against television. And a lot of people had changed, times had changed. People really wanted to see those old films again. By the time it hit 1968, the Hays Code was well and truly dead. However, the damage that it has done over time is still being seen in a lot of films that we have today. It's been a massive struggle to get queer people and people of color on screen. While the Hays Code definitely died in 1968, we're still seeing the aftermath of it. And with the current movements that are going around recently in this day and age against transgender people, gay people, people of color, we are still seeing the fallout from that golden age of cinema from the Hays Code. And I think it's going to last for at least another decade. I thank you for watching my presentation. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have any feedback, I am more than happy to hear it.